Hello, today I'm going to be talking about what you should know about the homeschool resources produced by Gentle and Classical Press. Hi, I'm Rachel from 7 and All, and I am a second generation homeschooler homeschooling two boys in Southeast Asia. If you have been watching my channel for a while, you will know that I have used quite a bit of resources from Gentle and Classical Press, and even if you haven't been watching my channel for a while, I can tell you that I will continue to be using their resources in the future as my boys grow. This video is for you if you've stumbled across the Gentle and Classical website and you've been intrigued or interested in using some of their resources, but you're not quite sure how to get started, or perhaps you just want to know more, to know if these resources could be a good fit for you and for your homeschool. So I am going to share what I've learned from several years of using their resources, both tips on how to get started as well as tips on how to use them in the most effective manner. So I believe I have about 9 points for this video. I'll try to move through them pretty efficiently. Number one thing that you should know is that Gentle and Classical Press does not only have curriculum resources for little kids for the early years. So I feel like many people know a great deal about their preschool and their primer programs. I have made multiple videos featuring and mentioning those. They are excellent programs. I can link to my reviews below, but they have more. They have more that can take you through elementary in different subject areas. Some of their resources that are good for older kids are one, the On Mission magazine series, which is a geography and missions themed course that can take you through different countries around the world. Then there is also Morning Virtues, which is a morning basket, morning time plan that you can use that incorporates multiple subjects like art, music, Bible, catechism, hymns, and folk songs. So those are the elementary age resources for once you've gotten beyond the preschool and kindergarten age level. I have not myself used their resources for older kids yet because my kids are still young enough to be in the primer and preschool levels, but I did recently purchase some Morning Virtues and On Mission resources with an eye toward using them in the future. And keep your eye on Sequence 1. At the time that I'm filming this video, it is not yet released, but the teacher's guide, the preliminary teacher's guide, is available as a download, and it looks very intriguing to me. And that will be a first grade-ish level program to follow. Gentle and Classical also releases curriculum for nature study. That can be a great nature science curriculum, and their nature study programs are actually designed to be used with multiple ages. They offer different levels of memory statements, different levels of activities and readings that you can do. So I have been using them with my preschooler, pre-K, kindergarten-ish level sons, but you could also be using them in the first couple years of elementary very easily by just using the higher level memory statements and higher level readings. Those are excellent programs that I highly recommend, and they are age adaptable. By the way, I also am an affiliate for Gentle and Classical Curriculum now, and I will leave my affiliate link down in the description box below. So if you are thinking of trying out any of these resources that you haven't purchased before, I very much appreciate it if you use my affiliate link. That helps support me and my channel, and I'm also happy that you're purchasing high quality resources to use. I love to see other families enjoying some of the same resources that I have enjoyed with my sons. Second point, if you are at all interested in Gentle and Classical resources, please know that the teacher guides are available as totally free digital downloads on their website. So the teacher's guide for preschool, the teacher's guide for primer, the teacher's guide for Sequence 1, as well as sample issues of both Morning Virtues and On Mission, you can find those available as free downloads so that you can fully check them out, read the details, find out what they're all about to help you assess whether it would be a good fit for you and for your family. Now, the actual programs and bundles that you can buy include way more than just those teacher guides, and they include resources that do make those teacher guides a lot easier to implement. So, third tip, when you download that teacher guide or when you open up that teacher guide, don't skip the front matter. Gentle and Classical Curriculum is a little bit unusual in that the teacher's guides tend to include a lot of front matter. I'm talking in some of these about 50 pages. for the teacher to read. These are not part of the weekly unit lesson plan setups, but there's a lot of front matter. So if you look at the primer teacher's guide, for example, there's pages and pages and pages of front matter. Now, if you're the kind of person like me who since childhood would literally sit and read any junk mail, back of a cereal box, any prologue in a book just because there's words there to read, this is obvious that you're going to read the front matter because it's words and you can read it and it's fun, all the words, all the reading. But I know that some people tend to kind of skip past front matter in books. I highly encourage you not to do this. I feel like many confusions about using this curriculum will be cleared up if you take the time to read through those. Once you have read the front matter in any one gentle and classical program, then there is going to be a lot of overlap and you're going to understand a lot more how to implement these resources. It doesn't completely change from one year to the next. So there will be a lot of overlap, but I still do find it helpful to just, when you first open up that teacher's guide, take the time to read through the material in the front of the teacher's guide. It will help you a lot with feeling like you understand it, how it works, how to implement it, and not be confused and overwhelmed. Number 4, you should know that Gentle and Classical offers all of their resources as digital resources or as print resources that you can order and have sent to your home. Now, there are perks to either side. The digital resources are priced very affordably. So this is not the type of situation where you're going to look at the PDF price and the print price and notice that there's only like $2 difference. They are usually priced much cheaper to get the digital resources. Of course, then you will have to do printing at home. You will have to do prepping at home. I love that they offer digital resources. That's the reason I got started using them in the first place. As an overseas homeschooler, that can be a lifesaver to be able to just have digital PDF resources, things that you can print at home. Another great feature of the digital resources option is that you can just print what you need. Maybe you just want to use the teacher's guide on your computer or on your tablet and not actually print it out. You can do that. Maybe you're not planning to use the memory cards for every topic, so you only print out the memory cards in the topics that you want. So it's very flexible in that way. It's instant. You can get it, and you can get it no matter where you are in the world. So I really appreciate that factor. Now on the other side, the print factor, I haven't yet seen any of their print quality, but everything I have heard from those families who do use the printed resources from Gentle and Classical is that it's incredibly high quality, much higher quality than you'll be able to print at home. So if you are the kind of person that takes joy in really, really nice, really pretty, nicely printed materials, nice thick cardstock, you definitely might want to go for the printed option. Also, time is a real factor for homeschool parents. This is a program that's going to take some initial setup. So not having to do the printing yourself, not having to do any binding yourself for the teacher's guides, that's a real factor to consider. Sometimes ease is what we need as homeschool parents to actually implement a good curriculum, and just ordering the printed version can make your life quite a bit easier. Now my 5th point, it kind of ties into that decision between digital versus print. This is not an open and go curriculum necessarily. This is not everything contained in one notebook binder and you just go to the next lesson and you read the script to your child and they do the little circle or cross out activity. This is not that. This is a program that really leans into the idea of teaching our kids big ideas, sparking these big ideas of faith and how the world works and their place in the world and how they respond to life situations, sparking all of these big ideas, having conversations about these big ideas from a very early age and continuing those conversations for the rest of your children's lives. This curriculum is very focused on those big conversations. So it is not open and go. It is not the simplest choice that you could make, but it is good. And it's not also very, very complicated. I think those who watch my channel often know that I do not do overcomplicated homeschool. I don't tend to have a lot of supplies on hand at every given moment. I might not have, cotton balls for months at a time. So I can't do the kind of curriculums that require you to have a ton of supplies and a ton of hands-on activities because I just don't have the stuff. I like things to be pretty easy. So I would say that this falls between open and go to really, really intense preparation. It's somewhere in the middle, and really once you get going, once you get your rhythm, it becomes very automatic. So here's what you will need to do is that when you first get started, either digital or print, you will have to prep the curriculum, come up with a way to organize it. And then the second thing that you will need to do is you will probably need to have a short weekly planning session each week where you'll just decide what readings will you do on Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday, what activities will you do with your art activity or your music activity or your nature notebook activity, and just kind of look at your own schedule and figure out how to spread those out throughout the week yourself. I do that every week, and it probably takes me about 15 minutes and maybe a few extra minutes for switching out the memory cards for the next week. To me, it's very easy. It's not totally open and go, but it is also not very difficult. So it's not open and go, but it's also not very time consuming, and I like that a lot. Next point, memory statement cards are a very big deal in gentle and classical resources. Pretty much every resource has memory statement cards for all sorts of things. Bible verses, science statements, math statements. We've got, if there's a statement, if there's something you're learning about, we've got a memory statement card for it. I love that. I have found that using these visual cards, these memory statement cards, makes it so much easier to implement memory work with my young kids. I feel like at this point, memory statement cards, putting something on a card and learning it is pretty much going to be a permanent part of our homeschool. So this is a big part of the bundles that you can purchase for any one of their curriculums. And I would say don't neglect it, don't ignore it, but do think about what is going to be the best way for you to implement that in your household. The curriculum provider recommends creating a visual board where you can hang up and display all of these cards and your family can look at them throughout the week. That's a great approach. However, I don't actually do that. I keep them in a bag. We kind of use them as flashcards. We move them around. We play games with them. Sometimes we play hide and seek with them. So we tend to be very hands-on with our cards, but you can also display them. There's a lot of perks to that as well, having them visually displayed all the time when your kids can see them while they're playing or doing other things as well. Seventh thing that you should know is that you don't have to do every part of the program to still get a lot out of it. And I feel like this is a reminder that is broadly applicable in homeschool, but it does really apply to gentle and classical resources. These are very rich curriculums, very rich resources. They cover many different subjects and give you a very rich education. So you might look at the primer teacher's guide, for example, and feel like, oh, wow, this is a lot. I don't think I can do this all. And then you shut it and then you don't do it. I wouldn't recommend that because I would look at it and think, okay, what parts of this, what elements of this are going to be most beneficial for my family? My son and I have done primer throughout this whole past year. We've had an excellent time. I feel like he's learned a lot. But I decided pretty early on that there were some elements of it that I wasn't going to use. I didn't use the storyboards because I did not want to cut all of them up. But I did use the element of doing narrations. We did do acting out the story narrations. I just didn't use the nice, pretty storyboard pieces because of laziness. That is a legitimate reason, right? So you can take the program and you can use the principles, but you don't necessarily have to use every single element. In fact, you might decide early on, I don't think I'm going to implement this element. I think this is maybe a little bit too much for us right now. And then once you get into the swing of things, you might decide to add that in later. I did that in the primer program. At first, I did not print out the 3-part music cards because you may have noticed I'm not a huge fan of doing a lot of cutting and having a lot of small pieces to store and organize. But after a while of doing the program and learning the instruments, I was realizing, I feel like we would actually be remembering these instruments' names a lot better if we had these cards. So then I wasn't lazy and I printed out the cards, cut them all out, and we've been using them faithfully and I have seen the difference. So that's what I'm saying here. You can use these as a menu. You can take things out that don't fit you, your kids, or your needs right now. And you can maybe later decide, actually, I think I would have liked to have that in. Let's add that in later. You don't have to go all the way back to the start of the program to add in something. You can just start where you are. And that's the same for the nature program, the preschool program, for all of the programs really. You can adapt them, change them, make them suit your family. Treat this curriculum and all curriculums more like guidelines than actual rules, kind of like the Pirates Code. I don't know if this is going to be bad news or good news, but if you use gentle and classical resources, you are most likely going to need to buy some books. So this is important to take into consideration because the cost of the curriculum is not necessarily going to be your total cost, because most likely you're going to end up needing to buy some books at least to add on to the experience. Unless you happen to live with the world's best library, in which case, congratulations, that's a great place to live as a homeschooler. But many of us probably don't have the world's best library at our front door. So we're gonna end up needing to buy some books, which I feel like is no terrible hardship for most homeschool moms who we often tend to really love books, right? We have added many wonderful books to our collection through recommendations from Gentle and Classical, preschool, primer, nature, all of it, like Up in the Garden and Down in the Dirt. And then this book got me hooked on the whole series. And we also sometimes slightly change and adapt the book recommendations to fit our family. So we read Beatrix Potter's stories in primer, and I found a copy that had several of the stories we needed to read in Spanish. So that was a great fit for our bilingual family. Kind of did the same thing with Frog and Toad for Gentle and Classical Nature. Frog and Toad, excellent books, and they're still really good in Spanish as well. We absolutely love these. So this is why, be prepared that you are going to buy some books. You don't need to buy every single book ever recommended. You might want to, but you don't have to. But you will need to buy some, so do make a plan for that. Most likely try to buy the books that are being used on a long-term basis, or the ones that you just see them and you just really, really love them and know that they are going to be constant rereads in your family. And number 9, you need to know this too. If you are using Gentle and Classical curriculum, you also have access to community. There is online community there's a Facebook group for Gentle and Classical. It's kind of an unofficial Facebook group, but I can leave the link for it down below. And then there's also an official Gentle and Classical group community that is not on social media. So for those of you who prefer to stay off of social media, that is an excellent option for all of you. Erin herself runs that group and will be asking questions, starting conversations in that group. So I know for many of us homeschoolers who feel kind of isolated, spread all across the world, it can be really helpful to have a community of people that understand the same terminology, that understand the same stories and crafts and wins that we might all be experiencing. So those communities are excellent. I highly recommend joining them if you're using the curriculum and looking for community. All right, those are all my tips and suggestions from several years of using Gentle and Classical resources. I hope that you found this video helpful. If you did, please give it a like and do subscribe, because I talk about homeschool curriculum and homeschool life all the time, and I'd love to have you stick around for more. All right, I'll be seeing you. Bye.